Want to speak real French from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at FrenchPod101.com.
Hi, welcome to Introduction to French. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Candice. In this series, you'll learn everything you need to know to get started learning French.
That's right, and we're here to help guide you through your journey. In this lesson, you'll learn the reasons why you should start learning a new language, why you should learn French in particular, and how to get started. There are countless reasons, but perhaps the biggest one of all is that it could actually change your life. Learning a new language unlocks new pathways that are off limits to you now. There are certain things that you simply cannot do without having the technical or cultural skills that come from learning a new language.
Like working or living in another country.
Knowing another language provides you with greater job opportunities. You have the freedom to move to another country halfway around the world and be able to earn a living, or even better yet, build a career from it, instead of just being stuck in one place. Language allows you to visit or live in places that you may never have even considered going, simply because that wasn't a possibility for you. Knowing another language simply gives you more options to choose from.
And learning a new language also helps you to be more open-minded and see the world from a new perspective.
Language and culture go hand in hand. The world is a big place, and by broadening your understanding of other cultures, it allows you to be more empathetic and understanding of the many different ways that people live their lives. With language, you're able to see and experience more, which helps you to grow as a person.
Learning a new language also improves your memory.
Several studies have consistently shown that those who study another language have improved memory, as opposed to those who didn't learn another language. Learning another language also keeps your brain healthy by significantly delaying the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. This difference can be as much as 4 to 5 more years of quality life.
And those are just some of the reasons you should learn another language. The list just goes on and on.
Now you know the benefits of studying another language, but why should you learn French in particular? A good portion of the world speaks French. In fact, over 200 million people speak French across 5 continents. French is spoken in many countries around the world, and it's an official language in many countries, like Belgium, the Seychelles, Canada, Cameroon, and many more.
Moreover, French is the second most widely learned foreign language after English, so the number of speakers is growing rapidly. It's currently the 9th most spoken language in the world.
And what about the fact that France is the 6th largest economy in the world? The aerospace industry in France is huge. There's a special cluster of aerospace engineering companies and research centers in France called the Aerospace Valley. And of course, French wines are a lucrative industry as well, not to mention perfumes and cosmetics. Knowing French then opens up many career and business opportunities for you.
If you want to visit France, you must be warned. The majority of French citizens do not like or aren't able to speak English. Even in tourist places like Paris. If you make an effort to speak French and to learn their culture, however, you will be much more warmly welcomed. Learning French will help you during your trip, even if you're a beginner. French people will treat you much more nicely.
Okay then, we've talked about why you should start learning a language and why you should start learning French, but how can you get started, Candice?
Well, it's as simple as learning your first word in French and building up from there.
The good news, though, is that you already know some French.
Mirage, façade, encore, souvenir.
These are all French words that you will easily recognize because these words exist in English too. This is because both English and French are derived from Latin. In fact, roughly 30% of all English words used today share their origins with French words.
Not only this, but there are also English loan words used in French. Words such as babysitter, bacon, weekend, super are all English words that are used in French on a daily basis.
This means that you already know a very large portion of French vocabulary.
Yes, that's right. So learning French is much easier than you think. Okay, let's teach you something that you might not know, but it's very useful. Merci. It means thank you in French.
It's one of the most basic phrases and perhaps one of the most useful phrases for you to learn.
Merci.
Now you try.
Merci.
One more time.
Merci. You can also add beaucoup to to add greater emphasis. Merci beaucoup.
Try it.
Merci beaucoup.
One last time.
Merci beaucoup.
Well done. Now you know how to say thank you in French. We've covered a lot of things already, so why don't we wrap up the first lesson and recap what we've learned? In this lesson, you learned that studying another language has many benefits, such as providing new job and business opportunities. Learning French will allow you to experience more of the culture, and to say thank you in French, it's
Merci or merci beaucoup.
see you in the next lesson. Bye!
Bye.
Hi! Welcome to Introduction to French. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Candice.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of French pronunciation. In the previous lesson, you learned that roughly 30% of all English words share their origins with French words. Because of this, French pronunciation is quite similar to English.
In fact, there are more common sounds than there are different ones. For example, bout, sandwich, daim, gain.
Chances are you can imitate these words without much difficulty because these words use common sounds that exist in English.
Of course, there are a few differences between French and English sounds too. Agneau, roux, huit, cent.
These unfamiliar sounds are the ones that you need to focus on and practice. Let's take a look at some of those sounds.
A big aspect of French pronunciation relates to nasalization.
Nasalization simply means to pronounce something through the nose. For example, the M and N sounds are considered nasal consonants because the air escapes your nose when you pronounce these sounds.
In French, some vowels can be pronounced through the mouth or through the nose. Compare oral vowels with nasal vowels in French. Une, un, sonne, son, certaine, certain. Nasal vowels are used often in French, so it's important that you learn them in the near future.
Another unique French sound is the guttural R sound.
Roux, resté, ris. This R sound is pronounced at the back of the mouth. It sounds almost as if you're gargling.
Lastly, let's take a look at the French U sound.
U, chute, rue, tu. To pronounce this sound, try saying E as in sea, and then from there, slowly round your lips. U.
French is renowned for being a language full of silent letters, particularly at the end of words. Consider the following.
Je vais manger au restaurant. The S in the word vais, the R in the word manger, and the T at the end of restaurant are all silent letters. We don't actually pronounce them in French. Listen to it again. Je vais manger au restaurant.
In fact, most of the time, the last letter of a French word is actually silent.
Coup, froid, vous.
There are, of course, exceptions to this rule. Let's look at the most common case, when the next word starts with a vowel. Ordinarily, the final letter of a French word is silent.
Vous,
The final S in this word is silent, but when the next word begins with a vowel,
vous avez.
the S is no longer silent and is instead pronounced like a Z sound.
Vous avez.
The two words are connected by the Z sound and pronounced as if they were a single word.
This linking of words through the activation of the silent letter is a common phenomenon in French known as liaison. It's the special quality which makes French sound the way that it does.
Let's look at a few more examples of liaison in action.
Tout, tout homme, un ami. Neuf, 9 ans. Gentil, gentil enfant.
Liaisons may seem a little difficult to learn at first, but they will only get easier and more intuitive by the time you get used to pronouncing whole sentences in French.
Okay, let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned.
In this lesson, you learned that there are more familiar sounds than unfamiliar sounds in French. We showed you some unfamiliar sounds like nasal vowels, the guttural R, and the French U. You also learned that the final letter in a French word is usually silent, and that the letter becomes active if the next word starts with a vowel. This process is known as liaison. Hi, welcome to Introduction to French. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Candice.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of French grammar. In some languages, like French, nouns are divided into different classes.
For example, French divides nouns into two classes using gender, masculine and feminine.
Let's take a look at some masculine nouns.
Lit, fromage, village, livre.
Now, feminine nouns.
Cuillère, bout, revue, syllabe.
There are some rules for learning the gender of French nouns, but they're quite complex. Many consider the designation of gender to be largely arbitrary, so it's likely that you'll just have to memorize them. Okay, so now you know that nouns are divided into gender classes, but why is this important?
Learning gender nouns is important for forming sentences in French. For example, lit means bed in French, and it's a masculine noun. If you want to refer to the bed in a sentence, however, you need to add le before the noun. Le lit. In fact, if you want to refer to any masculine noun in French, you need to use le or un. Le fromage, le village, un livre. On the other hand, we use la and une to refer to feminine nouns. La cuillère, la boue, une revue, une syllabe.
Now you know how to refer to nouns in French. Similar to nouns, French verbs can also be separated into different classes.
There are three classes of verbs in French, and they are verbs ending in et, manger, nager, travailler, aimer. Verbs ending in ir, finir, ralentir, réagir. And verbs ending in re, voir, and ir, mourir, recevoir, lire.
Each class of verbs will be conjugated differently when used in a sentence. Let's take a look at a few examples to see how they differ.
To swim is nager in French, and it comes from the first group because it ends in et.
I swim in the present tense would be,
Je nage,
past tense would be,
je nageais,
and the future tense would be.
je nagerai.
Let's compare that to a verb in group 2.
To finish is finir in French, and it comes from the second group because it ends in ir. Je finis, je finissais, je finirai.
Finally, a verb from group 3.
To read is lire in French, and it comes from the third group because it ends with re. Je lis, je lisais, je lirai.
We'll teach you how to properly conjugate verbs of different classes in future lessons. For now, just know that there are 3 different categories of verbs in French. Okay, now you know about nouns and verbs in French. Let's learn how to form basic sentences in French.
Forming sentences in French is quite simple, especially for English speakers, as French uses the same word order as English.
Consider the following example.
Le garçon mange un gâteau.
In English, this sentence means, the boy eats a cake.
If we break down the French sentence, we can see that the order matches the English sentence one-to-one. Le, de, garçon, boy, mange, eats, un, gâteau, cake.
We can create basic sentences in French simply by exchanging English words for French words.
Notice how we use un here, because gâteau is a masculine noun. If the object had been a feminine noun, we'd have used une instead.
We can create any basic sentence in French by starting with a subject, in this case, the boy.
Le garçon
Then follow it with a verb, eats,
mange
and finally end with the object, the cake.
un gâteau.
As you can see, the word order in French is just like English. Finally, let's learn how to create negative sentences in French.
Negating sentences in French is simple. Simply add ne before the verb and pas after it. J'ai, je n'ai pas. J'aime lire, je n'aime pas lire. Juliette mange, Juliette ne mange pas. You can negate any basic sentence in French this way.
Well done! Let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that French nouns are divided into two classes, masculine and feminine. Similar to nouns, French verbs are divided into three groups. French uses the same subject, verb, object, word order like English. And finally, you learned how to negate sentences in French. We've covered only the very basics of French grammar. If you're interested in learning more, check out our French in 3 Minutes video series. In that course, we teach you useful phrases while covering the fundamentals of French grammar, and each lesson is only 3 minutes long. Hi, welcome to Introduction to French. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Candice.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of French writing. French uses the exact same alphabet as English, the Latin alphabet, which consists of 26 letters.
Unlike English, however, French also uses a few accents that can be added to vowels and this other character known as the cédilla.
These characters aren't recognized as distinct letters in French, though.
Let's take a look at these accents in a bit more detail.
Accents are simply markers that appear on top of letters to indicate some extra information. What that information represents depends on the type of accent.
Accents may look intimidating at first, and their function may seem complicated, but in fact is quite simple. Once you understand them, they actually help you rather than confuse you. There are a total of 5 accents in French, 4 of which appear over vowels, and 1 for the letter C. The acute accent, the grave accent, the circumflex, the diaresis, and the cédilla.
Not all accents can be used with all vowels, so only certain accents will appear over certain letters. The acute accent, for example, can only appear over the letter E.
Et.
It looks like a rising diagonal line going from left to right. You'll never see this accent used with any other letter in French. The acute accent indicates that you must pronounce the E as follows.
Et. Et.
It sounds like the E in hey.
Appelle, appeler, chante, chanter.
So whenever you see this accent, pronounce the E as follows.
Et.
Next is the grave accent. It looks like a falling diagonal line going from left to right. This accent can only appear over the letters A, E, and U. This accent helps distinguish between words that would otherwise be spelled the same. For example,
A and A, ou and ou.
when it appears over the letter E, however, it indicates that you must pronounce it as follows.
Et, est,
It sounds like the E in bête.
mère, frère,
Next is the circumflex accent. It looks like a little rooftop. It's used to indicate a change in pronunciation and to distinguish words that would otherwise be spelled the same. The circumflex appears over all vowels. An E with a circumflex accent on top is pronounced exactly the same way as the previous grave accented E.
est,
Like the E in bête.
pêche, fête.
An A with a circumflex accent on top is pronounced
A, A,
It sounds like the A in father.
pâte, hâte, château.
An I with a circumflex accent on top does not affect the pronunciation of a word. It exists merely due to historic purposes relating to a word.
Naître, abîme, naître.
And like I, a U with a circumflex accent does not influence the pronunciation of a word. However, it is sometimes used to distinguish words that would otherwise be identical.
Sur, sur, du, du.
The next accent is the diaresis. It looks like two small dots, and it can appear over the letters E, I, U, and Y in French. Whenever this accent appears above a letter, it indicates that you must pronounce this letter separately from the preceding syllable. For example,
Naïve, Noël, maïs.
the cedilla is a C with a special hook underneath.
The function of the cedilla is simple. It changes the pronunciation of the letter C from a K to an S sound.
So ordinarily, a French C would be pronounced,
Cassé,
but a cedilla would be pronounced
ça.
like an S sound. Like English, French capitalizes the first letter at the beginning of a sentence.
Je mange du pain.
Unlike English, however, there are a number of words which are not capitalized in French. The personal pronoun for I is capitalized in English, but not in French.
Il pense que je suis bête.
For example, days of the week are capitalized in English, but not in French.
Lundi, mardi, mercredi.
Months of the year aren't capitalized either.
Janvier, février, mars.
Nor are languages.
Le français, l'anglais, le russe.
Consider the following example.
Le 14 juillet, c'est la fête nationale française.
Notice how July and French are not capitalized.
J'apprends l'espagnol.
I is capitalized here because it's the first letter at the beginning of a sentence, but Spanish isn't.
There are some more capitalization rules, but those are the most common ones you'll encounter.
Well done! Let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned that French uses the same Latin alphabet as English, consisting of 26 letters. Additionally, there's also the acute accent, grave accent, circumflex, diaresis, and cedilla, which are used to accentuate certain letters. You also learned that I, days, months, and languages aren't capitalized in French. Hi! Welcome to Introduction to French. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Candice.
In this lesson, we'll focus on teaching you the most useful French words and phrases for absolute beginners.
Make sure you're repeating the words out loud after I say the examples.
Are you ready? Let's get started. The best phrase to learn when studying a new language is one that expresses gratitude and appreciation. If you had to learn only a single phrase, this would be it.
We taught you this phrase in the first lesson of this series. Do you remember what it was? Merci beaucoup. It means thanks a lot. Merci beaucoup.
Keep repeating after Candice until you get it.
Merci beaucoup.
Your turn.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
One last time.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, the next phrase we'll teach you is perhaps the second most useful of all phrases. It's to apologize or to excuse yourself.
Excusez-moi. It means excuse me. Excusez-moi.
Use this phrase when you're hustling through the busy streets of Paris.
Excusez-moi.
Your turn.
Excusez-moi.
Once more.
Excusez-moi.
Okay, one last time.
Excusez-moi.
Well done. You can also excuse yourself by saying,
Pardon.
try it.
Pardon.
And again.
Pardon.
One last time.
Pardon.
If you want to apologize directly for something you've done, you can say,
Je suis désolé. Je suis désolé. Je suis désolé.
one more time.
Je suis désolé.
Well done! Now you can say thank you, excuse me, and I'm sorry in French. Let's move on. Asking where something is an incredibly important and useful phrase to learn. You're going to need this when you're asking where the bathroom, the train station, or where the hotel is. To ask where something is, say,
Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve?
and then add the place or location.
Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve? Pouvez-vous means can you. Me dire means tell me. Où means where. And se trouve means is located.
Altogether, it means, can you tell me where something is located? For example, if you wanted to say, can you tell me where the bathroom is located? We would start with,
Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve?
and then add the bathroom.
Les toilettes. Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouvent les toilettes?
Try it.
Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouvent les toilettes? Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouvent les toilettes?
For the train station, it would be,
La gare. Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve la gare? Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve la gare?
and for the hotel,
L'hôtel. Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve l'hôtel? Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve l'hôtel?
you can also add excuse me before you ask where something is to be polite.
Excusez-moi, pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve l'hôtel?
You can ask where anything is by saying,
Pouvez-vous me dire où se trouve?
and then adding the place or location. In this final lesson, you learned how to say thank you, excuse me, I'm sorry, and to ask where something is in French. And in this series, we introduced you to the basics of French pronunciation, grammar, writing, and more. Let's conclude with some parting advice from Candice and listen to some of her tips on how to learn French from a native French perspective.
The best way to begin learning French is to start with simple words and build up your vocabulary. From there, you can start learning simple phrases and creating basic sentences. Don't concern yourself too much with articles and complex grammar when first starting out. Focus on stringing together words. Your goal is to communicate, and you don't have to be grammatically correct to do that. Learning basic word order and using the vocabulary that you know can get you a very long way. Remember, French uses the same subject, verb, object, word order as English. Focus on this aspect, and you'll be able to speak French in no time. Lastly, learning French, like any language, requires you to immerse yourself in the language. Exposure to the language is key. One simple thing you can do to immerse yourself is to watch contemporary French videos like our videos here at FrenchPod101.com. This will ensure that you're learning real, applicable French in the fastest way possible.
You've reached the end of this course, Introduction to French, but it's only the beginning of your journey to French fluency. Where do you go from here? Try our innovative French culture series where we teach you beginner vocab and even more useful phrases. Or check out any of our other video series. We have many different categories for you to choose from. Good luck as you continue learning French, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!
Bye!